In the previous workshop, we first started with a Chainlinked Dapp, and then it used to generate a random number between 1 and 6. And then we replaced the Chainlink job there with one that makes a call to one of the Honeycomb APIs. But the thing was that project didn't have a front end. So in this workshop, we're going to add a React front end to that tab. And then we're going to publish it on GitHub pages so that everyone can access it. But the first thing that you should do is to clone this repo. This is in CLC group, workshop honeycomb react. So once you do this, you have this project here. So the first thing to do is type in, so go inside the project directory and then type in npm install and hit enter to install the dependencies. I already did this, so if you look at the dependencies, it is the same as before. We only use Chainlink and Truffle HT wallet provider. And then the next thing to do is to deploy the contract. So you type in npm run deploy Robston. So this script is basically this. We migrate our contract on the Robston network. So again, you hit enter. I already did this, so I'm going to skip it. And then once you deploy the contract on Robston, you run the test script. So again, it has this script. It executes test.js. So we are going to run this now. This is slightly different than the one before. So the difference is in the previous workshop, the contract requested a random number between 1 and 6, 1 and 6 included. So this time we made it parametric so that you can give it the limit numbers and the Oracle is going to return you an integer between those numbers. So if you look at the contract here, under contracts, my contract.sol. So the make request function now gets two parameters, low and high, and it passes these as a part of the Chainlink request. So before these values were hard-coded, now they are not. And because of that, in the test script, now we can pass these parameters as 1 and 6. So it is again 1 and 6, but if you change these numbers here, it is going to return you numbers between different limits. So you can, for example, give -6 and -1, then it would return you a negative number between -6 and -1. Now we made the request, this is the request ID. Now we are waiting for the Oracle to respond. Once the Oracle responds, we are going to get our result here. So these are all pretty much the same from the previous workshop. So if you don't understand what is happening right now, you need to watch the previous video. So once we got our request fulfilled, so our result is 4. So the random number between 1 and 6 is 4. So we have confirmed that our smart contract is on the blockchain and it seems to be working correctly. And we have already done this in the previous workshop. So what we do now is to add a front end to this project. So this is our outer project directory and our front end is in the client directory. So this is actually a project inside a project. And how I created this project is through the create React app tool. So basically this creates a general purpose React app pretty easily. So you don't need to use this because I have already used it to set the project up. The dependencies here are, so these come from the create React app. I installed GitHub pages because we're going to publish our Dapp on GitHub pages. And I also install some React components because we need buttons and stuff. So what you do next is you go to the client directory and then you install the dependencies here. Again, I already did this, so I don't need to. And after that, you can run the React app as npm run start. And this is automatically going to open it as a page on your browser. So one thing that you should check is if you have logged into your MetaMask. So I'm going to check it now. You should log in and be on the Robson network because our contract is on Robson network and the app is going to display an error if you're on another network anyway. So we are waiting for the page to load because this is not built. So npm run start runs a little bit slower. So this is basically our front end. So now that we have parameterized this, we can change these numbers. So what is this for? This is basically, so yeah, it has disappeared, but this is the result of the test that we have run just now using test.js. So since this result is still on the blockchain, it is being displayed here. So if you remember from the previous workshop, we had a reset result function. So this button is tied to that. So now I'm going to click it. My MetaMask is not displaying notifications, so I'm going to have to do this manually. So I'm making a transaction here because I need a change on the blockchain for these to go false and zero. So this should be pretty quick because while resetting the result, I'm not making any Oracle requests. So if we look at the contract, oh, by the way, how does the React app see the contract? Basically, we added this new parameter in our truffle config file. So it tells truffle to build our contracts in client/source/contracts. So basically our contracts are now built here. And then they're referenced in the React app. And we are using Web3 to use them. You can go through the React app source file to find out how that works. But the thing is, we were going to look at the contract. Yeah, basically the reset result just sets these variables to false and zero and doesn't make any Oracle requests, so that's why it runs relatively fast. Now we are going to request the result, but let's change the limit so that we see that it actually works. So let's say -10 and -2. And then I click request result again. I need to confirm my transaction. So one thing to notice here is that once my transaction goes through, so my transaction is confirmed, but I didn't get the random results yet. Why is that? Because at the end of this transaction, I created an Oracle request, but this value is going to change once my Oracle request gets fulfilled. So in the previous workshop, we saw how we listened to events to find out when the Oracle request got fulfilled. Well, in this app, we're just checking the result every second and updating. And as soon as we get the result, it gets updated on the screen too. So we got -2, basically the higher limit. So you can, as I said, check the front-end code. Basically, it's all in app.js. I try to keep it as simple as possible, so that's why it's all in one file, pretty much. And you can simply change some parts. So there are text fields, buttons, which are pretty much all you need in most cases. So you can just copy paste those around and change this a bit. And obviously, if you already have some front-end experience, you would be able to do a lot more. And so now we are generating random numbers. Obviously, you can replace this Oracle request with any of the Honeycomb API requests from the previous workshop. So basically, the only thing that you would need to change would be the job ID here, and then maybe your contract. So again, refer to the previous workshop if you haven't. So finally, we are going to publish this Dapp on GitHub Pages. So let's stop our server, close this. So here what you need to do is, in the front-end project directory, go to package.json, and then here there is a homepage variable. So here, this is my GitHub handle, clc-group, and this is the name of my repo. So what you need to do is, first, either fork this project or clone it and push it to your GitHub under a different name. And then you change this with your GitHub handle, and then you change this with your repo name. So if you forked, you don't need to change this part. I don't need this part. And once you do this, run npm run deploy. So as you can see here, it runs GitHub Pages. So it builds the page and deploys it on GitHub Pages. So again, I already did this, so I'm not going to run it. But if I go to this link, now my Dapp is accessible to the world, and if you go to this link right now, you're going to be able to play around with this Dapp. And again, a similar thing happened. Although I didn't make any requests, this is true and -2, so this is the result that I got before. So that is because previously I was running the front end locally, but the thing is, backend was still on Robson. So here, the front end is hosted on GitHub Pages, but we are using the same backend. So this is why we are still seeing the same result. And for example, while you're looking at this link, if someone else clicks reset result, then the value that C is going to be changed because you and that person are again using the same backend. So there's only one contract. This is not special to you. So yeah, this is something interesting. So I showed you this because obviously you would want to publish your hackathon submissions on somewhere, and this is pretty much the easiest way of doing it. And it is basically free. So yeah, we expect you to publish these and have them accessible for people to see. And also we have this Dapp store on honeycomb.market. So these are Dapps from the previous Chainlink hackathon. So we would be adding the hackathon submissions here. And if you have already published it on GitHub pages, even if it's on Robston, it would be good publicity and allow you to find data sources and node operators to provide you with the decentralized data that you need. And obviously it is like good publicity for a Dapp developer to have this lying around. Good for the portfolio, good for the CV. So yeah, that's it in this workshop. We're not going to cover more because, as I said, I want these to be bite-sized, so to speak. And again, we have no smart contracts logic. So this only makes the request, but doesn't do anything with the request. So in the next workshop, I'm guessing that they're going to be adding some smart contract logic to this. And once you have smart contract logic and honeycomb requests and a front end, that is basically a real-world connected Dapp. So I'm pretty excited about that. See you in the next workshop.